On the Security Weekly News, I try to scan and produce a quick look at some of the major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Aaron Leyland, Josh Marpet, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you'll look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Thanks for coming back after the break. This is Application Security Weekly, episode 279, recorded April 1st, 2004. We just talked with Adrian Sanabria about InfoSec myths and misconceptions, why they're harmful, and what we could be doing better. I'm your host, Mike Shima. I'm here with Akira Brand, and we convinced Adrian to stick around with us for the news. But first, some announcements. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSA Conference full conference pass. RSA Conference will take place May 6th through 9th in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC24 and use the code 54USecWeekly. Hope to see you there. One more announcement. Entries are officially open for the SC Awards. This year, there are 34 categories, many updated to reflect trends in artificial intelligence, clouds, and continuous threat exposure management. This is your chance to shine amongst the brightest in the cybersecurity world. Take advantage of the early bird rate by April 12th. Visit securityweekly.com/SC Awards to submit your entries by May 31st. And speaking of RSA, Adrian, Akira, I threw in, we didn't get a chance to talk about this February's RSA that a couple months ago, that Bill Gates headline, which is pretty cool. So I want to come back to that first, but we are AppSec. And one of the coolest things that just happened is that the OWASP, the OWASP Top 10 has their first update. So it came out last year. Now, a year later, they tweaked a little bit of it, and they have some differences in categories like they have a new one called denial of service. They've folded remote administration flaws into broken access controls. But I think as listeners know, one of my favorites, like path traversal, isn't called out as one of the top 10. And, it's only been 3 years since NIMDA was running all over the place with their %% 5Cs. And so path traversal is obviously really bad. So I'm wondering, you see, this is their first chance of an update. What in this update did they miss? What should they have covered in here?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
I thought RSA was in May this year, but maybe I missed it. I'm surprised I missed.
No, February.
Yeah,
because Bill Gates gave that keynote, and he was talking about. Let's skip to that for a second, because Bill Gates gave that keynote, and he was talking about he wanted to kill the password. So he's talking about the death of passwords, and we're going to do this with things like hardware-backed tokens.
Oh wow!
And like RSA ID cards. And basically, the idea is that you have these. You don't need a password anymore. You have this one-time code that's generated off a token that people don't have to remember, or that are going to be more difficult to brute force because they're time limited. And there's even an article I included. Microsoft has a partnership with VeriSign. They're going to work and create these even physical tokens, which sounds pretty cool for authentication. So it's something that's actually happening. It's they're already working on this. So that's pretty cool.
Have you guys heard of something called biometric authentication?
Biometrics? You mean like something you have and something you are?
Yeah, I've heard that will also be pretty big, in the near future. I don't know. I feel like it kind of goes along with this whole idea that Bill Gates has so generously introduced to us in such a recent time. That, you can have a biometric ID card, but what if the biometric sensor was actually on your computer and you didn't need a separate ID card? Wow.
Oh, so you're talking about your fingerprint just touch the computer and it authenticates you rather than walk around with your key card on your keychain or something.
I just think that would be amazing. I don't know that will happen. It seems really complicated, but I wonder if that will evolve out of this.
Yeah, Microsoft actually acquired a company that makes fingerprint readers that you can just plug into a USB port. I think that was fairly recent that they picked it up. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like digital something, digital identity. But
I would be concerned about a fingerprint reader though that can plug into a USB port.
Yeah,
I feel like that would be kind of easy to circumnavigate somehow.
Well, we learned from last segment, we actually talked with Adrian. Listeners will have to go back and how dangerous USB ports can be. So this whole thing, juice jacking and whatever. So you're good point to bring that up, Akira.
Yeah. Really serious stuff.
One of the other things that came out of that Bill Gates was talking about is that, they rolled out this Patch Tuesday back in October because everybody was complaining that patching is hard. Nobody knows how to patch. Microsoft was coming out with patches just at random times. And so admins were like, we're dying. So they said, why don't we put all these patches, patch releases together on a Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month? We'll roll it out. And Bill Gates was saying, honestly, this was actually, I think, pretty good of him to admit that, quote, what was it? Their quest to convince customers to regularly patch to secure software had largely failed. And that's why they'd moved to this Patch Tuesday. So I don't know if you think Patch Tuesday sounds like a good idea, or if it's just like everybody, we've got a month to wait before we have to fix everything, and all the hackers out there are going to blow things up.
Well, we all know that the problem is just the end users, right? So anything we can do to make it easier for them.
Oh, wow. Were you here for the previous segment, Akira? I think Adrian's might have said the opposite thing.
Oh, wait, did I get the myth wrong? Oh, I got the myth wrong. Adrian, you're going to have to refute me.
Yeah, it's I mean, they really can be the problem. If we're going to be totally honest here, it's I think they do need to be educated somewhat. And we should roll out some programs where we make them watch lots of videos all the time. Is Mike speechless?
Mike is
speechless.
Speechless.
The stream froze. Sorry. Yeah, I'm on. I'm on a ISDN line, so every once in a while it drops. ISDN. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it drops every once in a while.
What Windows are you running? 95.
But I've got XP. And but to your point, Adrian, you're talking about, that's why I brought up the OWASP top 10, because here's this list. They're going to bring awareness, and they're calling out cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and to tie in that SQL injection, PHP 5 is coming out in a month or so. Mm-hmm. And they've introduced the MySQL I extension, which means you can now support prepared statements. And so we've got this combination where the OWASP top 10 is saying use prepared statements. And now PHP has the ability to write against prepared statements. So the lifetime for SQL injection is got to be down into single digits. It's going to be everybody can't rewrite the code within a year, but maybe 3 to 4 years. Yeah. SQL injection.
5 years, certainly.
Class is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can't do command injection if you're posting into a prepared statement. You don't even. There's not enough leeway for attackers to really leverage that to do arbitrary queries.
Exactly, and so all the developers are just going to start using this, and so that's just because it exists now. And
I hope so.
Well, you mentioned that we just need to make them watch more. Like, how many hours of videos do you think is necessary? Like, we've got a top 10 list. Should we have extended it to like 100?
Yeah,
did they miss like 90 things?
I think we're going to see training on this. We're going to see videos. There's going to be, depending on how people learn best, there's going to be, all kinds of different options for folks. And surely one of those is going to work for everyone. We'll get everybody trained up. Yeah, 5 years. We could have this entire class of attack gone.
Right. And then with, cross-site scripting, we don't have prepared statement style thing for cross-site scripting yet. But I guess the similarities there, that now that it's been named, it's going to go away. So that'll be a good thing. Broken access control. Oh, that was the other reason I wanted to bring that up, is that, there's broken access control, bad authentication. But if we get rid of passwords, and we adopt, Microsoft, what they're pushing on, there's the OATH, the oath standard. So there are some standards out there that are setting things up for passwords to be gone away. You said SQL injection 5 years, maybe let's double that, 10 years, and we'll have no more passwords. Everybody can be using their magic fingerprints that Akira is making up, or we just have hardware tokens we're plugging into USB.
Or at least passwords they don't have to remember, right? It's once they log in, they can just stay logged in all the time.
Just stay,
You know what I'm really excited for too is this nascent field that we have, which is application security, right? And I feel like that the duties of a lot of these workers will have to be around educating people around these top 10 lists, right? I mean, I think there's only one, right? There's only one top 10 list, but I wonder if in the future we're going to have more for more specific things.
And it was related to, it was inspired by the SANS top 10, or actually top 20, because I think they did a top 10 list for Windows, a top 10 list for Linux and Solaris. A couple Solaris things might have crept in there. So there's a little bit of precedence for that. But it's interesting that we don't have enough lists yet. And I'm glad you brought that up, Akira, because the other article I have is HD Moore has rewritten Metasploit. So we've gone from 1.0. It's now in 2.0. The sad thing, sorry, listeners, it's still written in Perl. Oof. But yeah, I know. But it now has 18 exploits and 27 payloads in this release. And sort of to Akira's point, we've got these new AppSec. A couple vendors are starting to come up out there. They're doing this type of vulnerability scanning, but HD Moore now has this open source tool that's just going to make attacks worse. Now all these attackers can do stuff because it's open source and they can run this tool and hack things. It's almost like we put all of the human intelligence into a tool. We didn't even need to be artificial.
Yeah, and it makes sense that a lot of the modules are focused on IIS as one of the most popular web servers out there. I think I'd predict we'd see more modules on Apache, as that's kind of more of an up and coming web server.
Yeah, it's funny to see that because Apache IIS I think one of the reasons Bill Gates showed up for that keynote is that there was that trustworthy computing memo that got sent out. They invested tons of money because there was NIMDA, Code Red, SQL Slammer. Imagine SQL Slammer hitting 300,000 systems. That's like almost the entire internet. And it's spread within a couple minutes. So Microsoft does not want to be responsible for something else like that. But Apache is open source, and everybody's scared that open source. What's the phrase that Linus used?
Linus,
with enough eyes, all bugs are shallow. Linus, thank you. Yeah, not the Peanuts character.
Yeah, totally. I mean, everybody can see it. It should be pretty quick and easy to find any kind of serious vulnerabilities, rather than trusting a closed source ecosystem. Makes sense.
I'm actually going to push back on that because I think that in the future we might have more eyes and maybe less problems, but I think this is just going to get so much more and more complex that we're going to have a lot of people just not knowing what we're looking at here. So that's why things like this OWASP new top 10 list is going to be so important, so that we can have things that we're looking for, like checklists or audits or things like that within open source software. I really don't think that the answer is more eyes. I think the answer is more standardization.
Probably more. That's a good point. And more checklists. So before, Microsoft probably has a lot of checklists. So before they can release anything, they need the security team to to read through the code, to go through their checklists. How would we convince open source projects to just follow all these checklists that start off with you use a secure design, you use a secure default. So those are the two parts of it. You didn't use SQL injection. Yeah, checklists. Yeah. We need more checklists. It probably sounds like the way to go.
Way more checklists. Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned, this was inspired by the SANS 20, but it's only a top 10. Is that because, there's not much beyond the 10 that we should be worried about? Should we be concerned that it's only focusing on 10 things?
It's a good question because it's one of those things is and that's why, that's why I wish path traversal was on there, at least as number 11. But developers, are making lots of mistakes. And we've seen, I mentioned the SQL Slammer worm. There was the Morris worm back in the 90s, and that was already targeting the finger server and Echo. And, so there's already precedent for the web. Everything is just going over HTTP and HTTPS now. But I figure if we've got enough firewalls out there, that's going to block so much of the HTTP traffic that maybe there's only 10 things that we do really need to worry about because we've got firewalled and hard exteriors for our networks now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I'm thinking of, but the other part about that Metasploit, I wanted to go back to that because you helpfully pointed out, Adrian, a couple of the vulnerabilities it was targeting, expecting to see maybe some more Apache on there, lots of IIS already, obviously. But what's really neat is how HD more democratized this and also worked on making these exploits can be so generic for different architectures. But one of the things that it is waiting on is finding more vulnerabilities. So I'm curious what you think about how can we go and find more of these vulnerabilities, and whether they are in the web, in IIS, and something else. And we've got a lot of grep. Have you had any success besides using grep for looking at source code, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple new companies out there. There's certainly. Nessus was taken private last year by a company called Tenable, and so there's
open source then not open source. That was an interesting direction.
Yeah, and they're managing their own list of vulnerability checks, and expanding on the ones that the open source Nessus had, and so that's with the money necessary to find some of these, to build these plugin checks, that should help out a lot rather than it just being a community effort.
One of the interesting things, I'm going to use that, I forgot to include one of the other articles I included, again, also from February, so around the RSA timeframe, was that Microsoft, we got to stop calling their browser, it's no longer Firebird, it's Firefox now.
You mean Mozilla?
But, the reason,
said Microsoft.
Yeah. Oh, did I say Microsoft? Yeah, it starts with an M. That's why I got confused. You're right. Yeah, Mozilla. Things that start with an M. Mike, good things. But yes, thank you. Mozilla, it's Mozilla Firefox now. So already I have to stop calling it Microsoft Firebird because that's even incorrect in many, many ways. But Mozilla Firefox. But the other reason I threw that in there is, speaking of finding vulnerabilities, I wanted to link to Perl proxy again, because one of the fun things about web application hacking is that it's so much easier. All you need is something like Perl proxy, which is sort of a TiVo for your web browsing traffic. You can pause the traffic, change it, inspect it, and then send it off
nice.
to the server. And you're just dealing with JavaScript. You're just dealing with HTTP as a text-based protocol. So it's a little bit more accessible, at least for me, than smashing the stack for fun and profit. That the cool Frack from the 90s article that kicked off buffer overflows and then rainforest puppies, CGI hacking. I think also from the about a decade ago, talking about, once again, picking a lot of Perl for that matter.
Yeah, I really like Firefox. It's I'm using it more and more for than instead of Internet Explorer, but I find some sites don't render correctly, so that's a big issue there. Is some websites still have ActiveX controls and stuff like that, and I've got to keep switching back and forth between browsers, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I agree with you,
and Flash. That's Oh, go ahead, Erica.
From what I can tell, there's like a lot more. Maybe the word is plugins available for Firefox right now. Like maybe a little more customization, and I'm really excited about that too. Just the security implications of that. Like I really want to see what kind of tools people will build to utilize along with Firefox. Just maybe even to help with pen testing and things like that.
Yeah, browser is a good future. And speaking of, because, Adrian, you mentioned using IE, well, Firefox a lot now, but Safari, I've been using it for the past year since it came out, and it does pretty well, except for all those sites that are written for like Microsoft IE, like quirks, HTML quirks. And that's what's interesting to find vulnerabilities, because you have web applications whose behavior is, tweaked for something very specific.
Yeah, the moment you want to listen to audio or watch a video or something like that, you gotta switch back. Well,
if you install Flash, everything's taken care of. You do have to keep it updated every once in a while, because I think last month they had a critical update, and maybe the month before that they had a critical update. Might have been the month before, or maybe it was the month before that they also had a critical update. And I can't remember. I think they had another critical update this month, but I just didn't want to repeat myself too much. So I left that one out. I figured people realized just update Flash and you're fine.
Yeah. And I think Flash isn't going to go anywhere for a long time, nor is Internet Explorer. These are like the gold standards. I wouldn't be surprised if people are still using this stuff in 10, 15, 20 years.
Not when we've got the fresh world of audio and video iPod broadcasts. Like we've got, internet radio going on right now. This is the cool stuff.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see commercial vendors also building their interfaces around Flash. So very, nice update from just plain HTML.
It's between the Java and Flash is definitely the competition for what's going to be that, multi-platform written for PowerPC or for Linux or Microsoft, etc. That'll be interesting to watch.
Well, are you guys on social media yet? Like, are you on MySpace yet?
No, I don't think so.
Tom's friend.
Oh, you're Tom's friend. Okay, good. Yeah, no. So, Adrian, you should get on social media. It's like this hot new thing. And it's really cool the kind of customizations and animations you can do on your social media page. It's kind of like decorating your own house, right? It's pretty cool. And I do wonder, like
having a GeoCities page or something like that?
Kind of like that, yeah. It's like that, but like a lot more personalized. Like you have pictures of yourself and stuff like that.
You don't have to get your own domain? Or like a...
No, you don't have to get your own domain. It's all hosted on like myspace.com/your username.
Oh, okay.
Fabulous stuff. But anyway, all this is to say, it'll be really interesting to see how, audio and video interfacing how they interface with social media websites. There's going to have to be some kind of centralized thing at some point where we can just host all this stuff, because it's going to be too complicated. But you should play around with that with social media pretty soon. It's pretty fun.
And there's got to be some security aspects to that too, because, image we saw, I can't remember, I forgot to include the link, but we've seen some image parsing problems from in PostScript. And I think the open source GoScript has had a couple of problems with that. And Image Magic, I know, is coming out, or is it Graphics Magic? I always get the names confused, but they're doing some things about, being better protected against GIFs. And so I'm curious, with all those like social media sites you're describing, like just how much we're going to have, like when GIFs or bad images are going to show up on, maybe that's number 12 after path reversal on the next OWASP top 10.
Oh yeah, right now it feels like you can just upload anything and hopefully it works out, which is not the most secure way of approaching this stuff.
No, it's not the most secure way. But one of the things that I wanted to do, and maybe wrap up here a little bit, is, I talked about, we've got security awareness is growing. We've got the OWASP top 10 just got its first update, which really was just a minor tweak, but now everybody's aware of security. So cross-site scripting, SQL injection, they'll be dying out in a couple of years. PHP is now supporting prepared statements in the MySQLi extension, so developers can start using it. That's going to go away. Metasploit is open source, so we've got some really good ways for pen testers to go and target organizations. They can do this. So we've got some tools. And so far, OWASP open source, Metasploit open source, PHP open source. Are we even going to need AppSec vendors in a couple of years? Microsoft, obviously, maybe the passwordless part. So I shouldn't forget that. But what do we think about is the future of the AppSec as an industry? I'm worried about job security.
Yeah, I mean, as we kind of knock down these, if we're going to use OWASP as a checklist, you'll still need some product to let you know, like, your progress in doing that as you start crossing these off the list. So at least until we work through it.
So like a big spreadsheet, probably. Yeah, so we need some spreadsheets. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think it'll stop at that, though. I really don't think we're going to need anything more sophisticated. Oh, we made Mike speechless again.
I was just nodding along because my ISDN is hiccup again. So that's why I'm just trying to smile and make sure that Akira is still talking and making good points for me while the lag catches up. But maybe that lag is also a sign that we probably should be winding down here. So
you got to remember to turn off your Unreal Tournament server. It's probably using a lot of that bandwidth.
Yeah, man. Are you like on your LAN right now? Like,
I was using. We had a Doom LAN party yesterday, and I think I might have left the servers running. Yeah.
Fun. How much Mountain Dew did you drink?
Surge. I think you mean
Surge. In the spirit of Code Red.
Surge. Sorry, Surge. My bad. Surge.
I know. Well, thank you for mentioning that, because we are trying to get sponsors. That's one of the new gimmicks now that a lot of these internet radio shows are doing. So yeah, Surge, Mountain Dew.
Surge
if you're out there looking for sponsors,
would be
we can talk
that'd be a good one.
Yeah, got some good gadgets. Oh, that's true. Yeah, next year I'll make a note that in 6 months from now, that's one of the common things that we do with John, is we talk about things in 6 months. So 6 months from now, Think Inc. will have to go through their Christmas list of what's some cool, fun. They've probably got something you can plug into a USB port this year again, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Well, this has been a whirlwind tour through the news. I apologize for only having 6 articles, but it's the start of Q2. News was kind of slow, and I didn't want to be neglectful about getting RSA mentioned in there. So thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Kira, for joining me again this week.
My pleasure.
I want to thank everybody. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please do subscribe. Post about it on MySpace. Check out the show notes. And speaking of things that are new, check out Toxic, the new single from Britney Spears. We'll see you next time on Application Security Weekly. And I'm playing poker with both of you because you cannot hold a straight face.
It was hard. That was mentally exhausting.